Welcome to painting a portrait. In this video, I will show you how to draw onto a canvas using a photograph and a grid. First, I drew a grid onto my canvas. The canvas is 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters. So I created 10 squares, each side of 3 centimeters. Then I moved on to the photograph. Now the photograph is rectangular, so I had to create a square out of the rectangular photograph, and my dimensions there were 20 by 20, so I'm enlarging by 50%. Remember to press lightly when drawing onto a canvas. It is absolutely possible to erase like pencil, but it is still trickier than when you pencil onto paper. My advice is to work square by square. Forget that you're drawing a face and just focus on the lines and the shapes. You want to include as many details as possible. Remember that this is an outline drawing only. Do not colour it in at any point, otherwise you're going to have to erase this pencil. The lead from the pencil will mix with your paint and discolour it. Keep in mind that your eyes sit halfway down the head, and then halfway down on the second half, so a quarter, sits your nose, and then a third of the way down there sits your mouth. So keep in mind these proportions. This will make your life a little bit easier when you're drawing. These are guidelines only, so when you start to paint, you may need to play around a little with the placement of some of your details. Well, I'm going to use acrylic paints for this work, and I start with a warm base. In this case, it's red. In fact, I always start with red. I paint the shadows and the darker areas first. This is my first layer of paint. And after this is complete, I will add brown to the top of the darker areas of the face and sometimes the hair, depending on the colouring. I started using acrylic paints, which I adore, about 7 years ago, but it took me a little while to learn how to use them. They're one of those mediums that need to be layered. So you need to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of acrylic paint in order for it to work effectively. Now it's time for skin tone. You will need white, brown, yellow, red, and a tiny weeny bit of green. The green just calms the colour down. Unusual, I know. I'll start with a white, mix my pink and yellow, and usually use brown last because brown tends to dominate the colour. Now here you can see that I'm looking for skin tone, so I'm using my own hand to check that. If you're creating a self-portrait, it's a really good way to go about doing it. Now I'm not painting myself in this case. I am painting my boss, and her name is Dr. Kim. So I'm having to reference the photograph to make sure that I have appropriate skin colour. You'll notice here that now I have a background. I forgot to turn the video on during that time, so I've just painted the background, so when I'm painting on top of it with details like hair, I don't have to repaint or retouch them up. Now back to skin colour. What I would do would be to create about 5 different tones of skin colour. Dark, medium light, and light, and an extra one in there. You'll find that some people's skin has more of a yellow tinge, and some people's skin has more of a pink tinge. So you want to really look closely at the colours and tones you are trying to create. Balance is key. So if I'm choosing one tone, I will use it across the whole face. You will notice I will look at the eyes, areas around the mouth, and cheek and forehead. And I'll keep going back and reworking colours to get them just right. I'll rework the eyes a number of times. I tend to make my eyes just a little bit bigger. Now you want to look at the pupil and you want to look at the colour, because even though, for instance, these eyes might look brown, there are a myriad of different colours, different browns in the eye. Really observe your figure, your face that you are painting. Have a look for all those little details. As they say, the devil is in the detail. I also tend to leave black for last, and I talk about this a lot, but the minute you start introducing black into a painting, that you are likely to muddy up the colours. So if you finish the rest of the colours, adding black is always going to pop everything. It's going to make things stand out. It's beautiful, but I would leave black to as late as possible. Now I've added black here, and then I'm going back and I'm reworking the skin tone. I'm not happy with it. The skin tone needs a little more yellow, and obviously I'm over exaggerating it here, and I'll need to pull it back, but this is how I work. At this stage, I pulled in a couple of my students who were more than happy to give me a critique on the work. They could see things I couldn't. They looked at details, some of the shading, the shadowing, they looked at the proportions, and they gave me incredible feedback, which I was able to work on and change the painting for the best. It's always good to get that kind of feedback. And yes, I do use a wipey to pull the colours back if I think they're not where they should be. But you know, this is about done, and I'm pretty happy with the result. Thank you for watching.